Loki got a kind of comeuppance, he lost that round. Because although only 2 inches, it was like enough to prove he's a god. Now I take that as a metaphor in my interpretation of the card, which is in the book. A lot of us feel there's too much to be done in the world. There's too many problems. There's, just look at the state of the world. There's the environment, there's human rights, there's women rights, there's populist cults like Putinism or Trumpism. There's nationalism like Netanyahu, there's Brexit. Everywhere we look, there's a fire going on. How can we possibly deal with all this stuff? Well, I think what Thor teaches us is that we can, but we just do it a glug at a time. And every little bit we do reduces the general madness of the entire world. So by running a little philosophy club and instilling a bit of wisdom, we're generally attacking the sort of pandemic of ignorance that's been going on. And by the way, the word ignorance comes from to ignore. The active word of ignorance is ignoring. And that's the opposite of what we're doing by glugging and having a counterforce of wisdom. That's my interpretation of this card and why it's coming to us today. I hope that makes sense. The other card, and that's from the women. So thank you for Thor, right? You chose well there, we love you. And so did Thor, he loved women. And that's why us men should protect the world and be strong as Thor, because we have to protect it. So they can grow up, in safety and freedom from fear and war. Because, how many 10,000 Palestinian women have been killed in Gaza and their children? That's shocking, that's unacceptable. We need Thor to go in and sort this. That's why I've proposed a Canadian peacekeeping force or something. Okay, and then talk of the devil, we have the 5 of Earth, and this is the card of Baal. Now Baal was an important deity of the Phoenicians, who were some of the original inhabitants of the Middle East and the Near East. It's still there in Hebrew. The term means a master. So Baal Shem Tov means the master of the good name, one of the greatest Hasidic Kabbalists of all time, from Ukraine. Baal simply means master or lord. And I was visited by a Syrian friend who spoke Arabic from Syria, who did the drawings of these tarot cards. I love it a bit. She was a great artist. She pointed out that in modern Arabic in Syria, you call your husband by Baal as a sort of jokey thing, like my lord and master, and it's a term of affection. It means, so it's giving the husband the sort of the kudos of being like a little Baal. But in the Bible, Baal gets a very, very bad press. In the Jewish scriptures, which we call the Old Testament, Baal is the absolute devil. He's the enemy of the prophets. And the prophets, like Samuel and all the rest, they fight the priests of Baal in occult warfare. They rain fire on them, they attack them. And if you read, the antidote to this is to read a book called The Paradise Papers by a feminist theologian, who explains that we have to read all these scriptures contextually. They were written by patriarchal male priesthoods who wanted to defame women and their goddesses and their gods, and Baal was one of them. So the whole biblical narrative was given a slant that women are evil, goddesses are evil, anyone that goes with them is a devil worshipper. And she explains in detail, reconstructs this. And I think it's a brilliant piece of forensic detective scholarship by a feminist theologian. The Paradise Papers by Merlin Stone. And it explains why Baal got such a bad press. But I don't agree with that. I think that it's time to rehabilitate Baal as just another god name. He's one of the deity names. In fact, he has his own box here as the Phoenician traditions, which is in the number 20 in the pyramid table, Phoenician pagan religions. And they were really important let's not forget, for instance, that Europa, who gave her name to Europe, was a Phoenician princess. So she would have called God Baal. She honoured the goddess, who was Baal's consort, equally. And so there's an idea of a symbiosis of male and female working in harmony to create the fertility of the world. And fertility was seen in a 7-year cycle. It's interesting, in the mythology of Ugarit, which is in Syria, Baal was locked in a mortal combat with Mot, the god of death and sterility. If Baal triumphed, a 7-year cycle of fertility would ensure. But if he was vanquished by Mot, 7 years of drought and famine would follow. And there's a brilliant guy called Theodore Gaster, a professor of religious studies, who founded the religious studies department at Barnard College in New York University. Or in New York, it's Barnard College is a university. In a book called Thespis, he argues that these stories were originally plays that were put on by the priests and priestesses in the temples as enactments, like ritual myths. So somebody would play Baal, somebody would play Mot, and they'd have a sort of ritual battle. And the Wiccans still do this between the Oak King and the Holly King. At the midsummer solstice, they have a sort of ritual battle. Nobody actually dies. And it's about how life is a kind of constant struggle. But anyway, Baal's very interesting, and I give a lot of his theology, which has been discovered by archaeologists, discovering these old texts. In the book, they found in Ugarit a royal palace of 90 rooms, and crowning the hill where the city was built were 2 main temples, one to Baal, by the way, who was the son of El. So El is another Semitic name for the supreme god. And he's also in the Bible, El in a positive sense. And that's the root of the word Allah, which was the Aramaic word. So I think what I'm saying is that all these different Semitic languages should study each other and be reconciled. And we should realise there's good and bad in all these lineages. I don't think lordship is shown by killing and slaughtering and torturing and massacring. If Netanyahu thinks he's the new Baal of the Middle East, I think he's got another thing coming. He's just some poor little kid trying to prove he's stronger than the others. It's like playground nonsense. True Baal is a weather god who brings positive weather. And hot drought is caused when Baal is in the underworld. His return is in the autumn, and that brings rain and fertility back to the land. So anyway, you could read it in the book that I go into Baal in great detail. I think it's very interesting that the name occurs 90 times in the Hebrew Bible, but mostly pejoratively. So there we are. Now I think these 2 gods are quite interesting, and we've got these problems in the Middle East because of, in a sense, fear of Baal. In the collective unconscious of the Hebrew people is this terror of the pagan god Baal. And yes, he unfortunately, the Phoenicians did go in for human sacrifice. Scholars still debate how much, but they seem to think human sacrifice was one way of showing respect to the gods. They did it in Carthage as well. I don't agree with that, nor do I agree with it in the Aztec world, where some American Indians did. I think we need to grow out of human sacrifice as a culture. But the irony here is, so there's a people here that hate human sacrifice, and what they're doing is mass human sacrifice against the Palestinians. There's something weird about the psychology here. We just need to stop doing human sacrifice, and we need some new prophets really to come and do them, educational work needed to get people. I think fear is the killer. We've got to stop being afraid of wisdom. There were great philosophers, by the way, in the Phoenician world, Platonists, Neoplatonists, number specialists, people who wrote about mathematics, way back. And of course we should remember Pythagoras was half Phoenician. He coined the word philosophy, and he taught Europe philosophy. His mother was Greek, his father was Phoenician. And Thales, the other great philosopher, was Phoenician. And Europe is named after a Phoenician princess. So I think let's hear it for Phoenicia and Lebanon. I don't want Israel to start a war against Lebanon. I'd rather they sent in some scholars and said, tell us about these Baal legends. Let's have a rational discussion. Can we sign a peace treaty between Baal people and Yahweh people? Because after all, it was the Phoenicians that built the temple in Jerusalem. And that's what the Freemasons have been saying. So there's a lot here. And anyone that wants to know more, you have to read the book that comes with the cards. It's 1,000 pages, very detailed. And Baal Shaman is the Lord of the Heavens. And his consort is Asherah. And also in Byblos, which was sacred to Baal, that's where the Bible came from. And the first books were created in Byblos. So, okay, I think any final comments or questions before we finish? That's quite a feast for philosophers tonight. Lot to chew on. And, may it help spread the light and bring peace among the warring tribes who are still fighting each other over which god name is better. We maybe do need a bit of scepticism, even, dare I say it, a bit of postmodernism to grow up here. And realise that we're all equidistant from wisdom, because there is so much to know. But I don't think that means we should give up the attempt, Okay, thank you so much. We'll finish there. And may the gods bless us this coming week.